Okay, this video that I've generated here is going to discuss, or I'm going to discuss, a different approach to how a book group could handle a discussion. And it's based on a case study approach, which is a technique that's used in business and in law. But in this way, we would be studying a novel. The characteristics of a case study, just a sort of background, is that there's a dilemma described in about 15-20 pages, and it requires some sort of a recommendation by the students in the class. Typically there's two options, and it's fairly evident what those things are. There's a lot of supporting facts for each option, which are fairly evenly split. There's no right answer. It's a sort of a balanced presentation, and it's a learning experience that is intended to simulate reality. The case outcome is not known, so in that sense it's balanced, and then the students has to present their recommendation. The student role as either an individual or as a team is that they're an employee or some sort of outside consultant. They're paid, so it's not just that they're uninvolved and they can kind of give their opinion. They're actually supposed to give a real recommendation which reflects their professional ability. And they learn the skills then of analyzing the case and synthesizing some sort of a recommendation and then evaluating that recommendation using various business tools like a pro and con chart or a strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat chart, and there's others, and along with financial analyses. And what I'm going to present here and recommend is a sort of a pro and con chart in the situation which I'm going to describe. So, imagine you have read a novel, or you have a novel, and there's a multi-dimensional plot, a lot of characters, and they're all established by the author. But the outcome, when you finish reading the novel, is known, and you know exactly what it is. And as you're reading it, you will have noticed that there's a number of decisions, either implicit or explicit, stated, by the different characters as they respond to various events throughout the novel. However, if there was there could be a different outcome if they responded differently. So this is where it becomes sort of analogous to a case, business case. And what I'm recommending that you do, or suggesting that you would do, is that you would read the novel and then identify the various critical points that if something was said or an action taken by one of the characters, or a number of them, it would change the outcome. Oftentimes the outcome is not desirable, and so this would change it to a more favorable outcome. And then at these critical points, the characters, you need to generate for the characters several behavior options, 2 or 3, in addition to the baseline case, which is what the author wrote. But of course these options have got to be within the nature of the character as established by the author. So you list them, as I say, down below here. Option A, option 0, which is the author's one, and that's what you're trying to change, and then the various other options. And then for each option, you would want to write down what the pros and cons of that option. And then when you've got them all written down, you would select the best and recommend that as a course of action. In a sense, you're acting as another author with hindsight, but it's going to if you knew about this before you started the assignment, or started reading the text, you would certainly heighten your reading intensity and sensitivity to the various behaviors and the events in terms of the event itself, and then what are the consequences from that. So, typically now, when you reach a decision point, and a character makes a choice, which is dictated by the author, of course, there's usually a trade-off. Now, this may be implicit or explicitly stated by the author. And it's usually a trade-off, as in the case study, of a business case study, between risk and cost. Those are large categories. And the character in a novel is going to be trading about how much integrity does he give up, or she give up, and to avoid the immediate loss of friendship or whatever it happens to be. And I've got some of the things listed here, as you can see. This is the business risk and cost. These might be the categories that would occur, the situation that would occur in the business case. And in a novel, you can see some examples of what would be going on there. Now, what is interesting to do, and could help you in terms of once you've decided on a decision point, you could look at a two-axis description of what's going on. So you've got this sort of loss of integrity here, and you've got the risk of loss of friendship or whatever it happens to be on the upside. And in this case, there's a low loss of integrity, but a high loss of the risk of doing it, and then the alternative. And so you would then be generating other options, perhaps along sort of an imaginary line like that. And so you use the two-axis diagram to describe the situation, and then label it accordingly in terms of the risk and cost specific categories, and then look at what the character actually has to do in terms of making the trade-off. And the consequences oftentimes are seemingly unimportant. They're not the correct one, but they're seemingly unimportant. And subsequently in a novel, they become very important. Now, this is quite a standard sort of kind of trade-off that people have to make in business and in engineering and those sorts of careers, because you're having to weigh the cost it takes to make something, the time it gets to think, what is the demand of the subject in the product in the marketplace, lots of different things. And that's, again, sort of indicated down below there. The sort of chart that would be making, and this doesn't have to be as formal as I'm showing, but it gives you some idea, would be to have whatever the option is, character A does such and such. And then the benefits, the pros and the cons associated with each one. So that this action would have this consequence, that consequences, for an example. Now, some of these would be high, or medium in terms of their importance on the outcome. Okay? And if you did this for the various options, then you could select you could talk about each one, that you had examined it this way, and then which one did you choose? And that would be the one you would then recommend to the group. So the mechanism of doing such a thing like this and doing this case study approach, you'd have to divide the group either individually or in pairs, and then they would make these recommendations to the other people in the book club. You could choose different characters and different points. None of that would be pre-assigned or decided, or it could be done by the moderator, and it could be done before or after the reading, and then you would then discuss the book a little bit later in the next group meeting, for instance. And if there was a duplication of the decision point and the particular character, that's even better, because now you'd have what did people choose for their various options. The power of this method is it forces the readers and the people in the book to have reasons for their conclusions and recommendations, not just an opinion. I felt like such and such. That's fine, but it doesn't get you right into the novel to the extent that I'm thinking that this would do. Stimulates critical thinking and creativity to imagine alternative endings caused by a simple change in one or more of the characters' behavior, but not a change from their basic nature. You can't have all of a sudden the character decide, well, I'll get a gun and shoot him, if that's not within their character. It'll lead to a deeper understanding of the character and the author's skill in developing characters and narrating the plot. So if you're talking about being a writer eventually, this would be an opportunity to give you some thoughts about what choices did the author make and how did they make them, and that sort of thing. So it could be an educational technique for literature courses or writing classes at high school and the college level. So that was the sort of just this alternative description of this alternative approach for a book group discussion. Oftentimes people come to these book groups and it's just a sort of a social thing and a common interest, and they're reading the book for pleasure and that sort of thing. They're just sharing their pleasurable experience. This is a sort of a step beyond, but could also have educational benefits for students. Okay?